There are a lot of parents and teachers who come up with questions, and one of the questions which is very often asked to me is that kids know how to share, but they don't share. Why? They know that eating healthy food is good for them, but they don't like or they don't eat healthy. So, what can we do about it? What is the problem? And why does that actually happen? So, why does that actually happen is something which I think as parents we need to understand and from a brain's perspective, we need to know, and we need to also somewhere absorb the idea that knowing something is very different from doing. And this happens even as adults, to be honest. We know that working out is important, we know that eating healthy is important, but we've got a timeline, 1 month. We've decided for ourselves that we're going to eat healthy, but we still go ahead and order that pizza. So we know it, but we don't know. And you know what? When we ask ourselves why we do this, and if you ask yourself why you do it, you'll come up with 101 excuses. You'll say, hey, it's just once, it's not bad, it's okay, it's or a little bit of calories is not really harmful, and so on. We're very good in giving excuses, right, and to deny certain things, but kids are not like that. So to give you an idea of what I actually mean is that, a lot of times we know better and we can do better as well. So because we know, and the knowing and the doing is same at sometimes. But sometimes we know better, but we cannot do better. Like we can't really do that. So from a child's perspective, let me explain how the brain is. So I'm just using the chain that I made, and I've cut these three little pieces and made this chain out of it. And I thought this was a good way for me to explain this to you. And I have three sheets of paper here as well, but these are not the ones that are connected. But never mind, we'll kind of see what this means. So imagine if we have three parts to our brain, right? So we have this brain, and we have over here the midbrain, and you have here which is like the old part of our brain. So for the sake of understanding, let's divide our brain into three parts. You can divide it into more if you want, but for now, we'll just divide it into three parts. So this is the executive part of the brain. That means this is the part which is responsible for our thinking, for our reflection, for patience, for making problems, for making choices and solving problems, making decisions, relationship processing. A lot of it of that happens over here. This is the feeling part of the brain, right? So these two are, and this is where the memories actually get stored. But anyways, so not going into the details of it, but just watch. Supposing if I just hold this tightly, and if I just pull it a little, then what's going to happen with the others? The rest of it is going to follow. And if I do this backward, what is it going to happen? So for the sake of understanding, let's not divide it into three, let's divide it into two, the old brain and the new brain. So imagine this is your old brain, this is your new brain. So the old brain is where we feel a lot. We react to it. There's a lot of fear being processed over here. So it's a part of the brain that regulates fear, fight, the four F's. That is fight, freeze, flee, and faint. Faint is also something that happens when you're extensively anxious about something and, stressed about something and shocked about something. So this is when it happens. So the three F's is what happens over here. And the new brain is where a lot of new processes kind of comes in, thinking and all the other things. So what I'm trying to tell over here is that wherever you apply your pressure or pull, because that's what life is all about, that's what emotions are all about, is all a pull and push process. Yeah. So wherever you pull, the other thing is just following. And wherever you push, it just goes backward. So that's exactly what happens in the brains of the child. So this is what I call an integrated part of the brain. So that means everything is connected with each other. All the wires are meeting each other at one point of time. This is what an integrated brain looks like. So wherever there is an emotion that is being felt, the thinking mind kind of steps in because it's integrated. They come and say, hey, you know what? Don't feel so bad about it. Or for example, if there's a child who does not want to share because he's very close with his toy, doesn't very attached to his toy, doesn't want to do it, then this part of the brain says, don't worry about it, he's gonna give it back, or don't worry about it because your dad's gonna, in case if it breaks, then daddy's gonna get another one, or something of that sort, some other. Now this happens only when there is an integrated part. If it's not there, this is how the mind actually looks. So let's use two just for the sake of understanding, the old and the new. This is what happens. It's not integrated, it's separate. And what happens with this part of the brain is that it turns around, and if this is like a puppy dog which is barking, and barking because it's not happy, it's afraid, or it's upset, or there's a lot of memory of a child who had a toy, and then there's another boy who's actually taken that same toy and broken it, so the child is reacting because of that memory. This part of the brain, which is not really developed in the minds of the child because of the young age that they are in, looks and smiles, laughs maybe, and just watches that brain without integrating. And this part of the brain is also where a lot of meaning actually happens, a lot of stories happen. So, for example, um, if your husband is not taking you for a holiday, right? So this part of the brain actually watches it and looks at it and says, you know what, your work is more important than you. So that's the reason why you're not really taking me for a holiday. Your work is more important, money is more important, relationship is not important, mama is more important. I mean, this happens to the adult as well. It's exactly what happens in the minds of the child. It's a storytelling part of our brains. It makes a lot of stories, and the reason why it makes story is because it's designed to do it, and secondly, it wants to establish a sense of an experience. So it wants to make meaning of that experience. It wants to understand what that is, why that is. So that's why there's a lot of chatter in the head that happens. It happens to children as well. So they think something like, what if he breaks? What if I don't get that toy back again? Why should I share? Why should I'm the one who share? He should be sharing. I don't want to do it. I don't know why that is happening. So these are the couple of stories that happen in the head. When it's like this, children are not going to cooperate. What really it requires, what is needed at that point of time, is to integrate, is to bring it together. And how can you do that? Because kids, especially the younger ones, so when I say younger ones, it could be anywhere between the age of 2 onwards, 1.5 actually, or till they are about, let's say, 9, 10. They're actually thinking more from the brain, from their feeling perspective. So that means their feeling side of the brain is a lot more stronger. This is a lot more weaker, but then it kind of develops over a period of time. It's still developing. And it is during the teenage where it starts to fire. This part of the brain actually starts to fire more, and then they start reasoning, asking questions. So that's why if you see children who are about 8 and 9 years old, they start questioning our rules and limits and things like that. So this is where it's happening. So it's this whole process of brain development and growth happens throughout our lifetime, to be honest. There's a lot of changes that happens, but till 24, there's a lot of change that is actually happening. A lot of transformation actually happens. Um, so how do we provide that integration? The best way to do that is through stimulating sensory experiences of our children. So when I say stimulating experiences, that means that touch, that feel, that shake, that tap, that presence. That means you are there listening to them. That actually gets them to create that integrated process, because this then becomes a lot more calmer, and then that means this becomes a lot more calmer, and this becomes a lot more quieter, and then able to kind of get into that moment and listen to what you're saying, and also understand what is it that, or why is it that the rules can needs to be abided. So if you ask them, why do we have rules, what is the meaning behind it, and are rules important for you, they'll say things like, oh, rules are very important for us because they keep us safe, and we need to be kind, and it makes us such good girls and boys, and it's good for us because it helps us to work better with kids. We all know that. But when it comes to breaking the rules, they're going to do that. And you know what, not every day our mind is integrated. So even as adults, our mind, we don't actually work out of this integrated mind all the time. So there are days when our mind is integrated like this. There are days when our mind is separated like this. So if you really want to have a fruitful relationship, a fruitful life, a meaningful life, then the lesser the space between knowing and doing, the better it is for you. If it's more, if it's expansive, then it becomes a lot more difficult for people to, or children and adults to actually experience it. So the whole idea is, let me give you an example of what the sensory stimulation actually means. Is when a child does not want to share, or the child is, let's say, disturbing you in the classroom and saying, ma'am, listen, ma'am, listen. So at that point of time, if you can turn around, look at the child, be very present to that child and say, hey, you're pulling my shirt. It means It looks like you want me to listen to you. You want my presence. You want my attention. Yes, you have mine. Tell me what can I do for you? Say, man, look at my homework. That's fantastic. So instead of pulling my jacket, why don't you just tap my hand? Or why don't you, just, like maybe tap my shoulder just to know that you're doing. That's what you want. Fantastic. I heard you. Now go back to your class or go back to your seat. Let me come there and look at that. So when you create that sense of acknowledgement, when you give them your complete presence, you touch them, you feel them, you kind of make them feel a lot more safer, and that will make them a lot more safer, and that is going to be something that is helpful for people to get that sense of integrated feeling with them. So till I meet you next time, have a fabulous day and fabulous week ahead. I really look forward to meeting you very soon. But remember, for kids, doing is very different from knowing. So see you around.